With a soft clatter, the chopsticks slipped from my fingers, bounced twice on the solid wood dining table, and finally rolled onto the cold floor. I bent down to pick them up. In the living room, the female news anchor's clear voice continued from the television. CloudCore Group released its annual financial report today. Net profit has exceeded $1 billion. Chairwoman Vivian Lane announced that a special bonus totaling $120 million will be issued to the RD team. Among them, Technical Director Ryan Shaw will personally receive $100 million. The screen cut to the celebration banquet. The lights were dazzling. At the center of the screen, Vivian wore the white dress I had accompanied her to pick out at the International Trade Center. The cut was sharp and clean, making her figure look even more upright. She stood beneath the spotlight, smiling elegantly and appropriately. Beside her, Ryan stood in a perfectly tailored suit, holding a golden trophy high. He leaned close to her ear and whispered something. Vivian smiled and lightly patted his arm. I picked up the chopsticks and walked into the kitchen. I turned on the faucet. Water rushed into the stainless steel sink, washing against the metal surface and also against my eardrums. I stared at the cold stream of water, lost in thought. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. I turned off the water, dried my hands with the towel beside me, then turned and walked toward the study. The study door was not fully closed. A strip of warm yellow light spilled from the gap, along with Vivian's voice on the phone. Just arrange it. Yes. Ryan contributed the most this time. He deserves it. Fine. We'll talk tomorrow. I'm a little tired. I reached out and gently pushed the door open. She was leaning against the back of her ergonomic chair, still holding her phone. When she saw me enter, her carefully shaped brows subconsciously furrowed. Her tone carried a trace of irritation at being disturbed. What is it? I saw the news. My voice was calm, as if I were talking about the weather. What news? She asked back, her gaze already returning to the document spread across her desk. The financial report. And Ryan's bonus. She gave a very faint nasal sound. Her expression made it seem as if I were mentioning some trivial matter from a neighbor's house. Something entirely unrelated to her. So, that patent, I said, each word extremely clear, like I was stating a physics formula. I wrote it 3 years ago. I stayed up for 8 months. I slept less than 4 hours a day on average. I sat in that broken lab chair until I could barely straighten my back. Ryan didn't write a single line of code. Vivian finally lifted her head and looked directly at me. Her gaze was faint, carrying scrutiny, as if she were looking at an unreasonable child who did not know better. And then, what exactly are you trying to say? You know I wrote it. I repeated. It was not a question. It was a statement. I know. She pushed the documents toward the corner of the desk, producing a faint friction sound. But the patent rights belong to the company. That was the agreement you signed when you joined. The company makes money from the patent and rewards the people who created value for the company. What's the problem? Then you should be rewarding the entire RD team. Not just him. Ryan is the project lead. Her tone began to lose patience. He never even wrote a complete requirements document. My voice rose uncontrollably. Ethan. Her voice instantly cooled, like a thin layer of ice forming across a winter lake. Are you questioning my management decision? I opened my mouth. Every word I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. In the end, not a single word came out. We had been married for 5 years. I knew this tone of hers too well. It was not negotiation, not discussion. It was notice. A notice that this matter ended here. And I should say no more. I stopped arguing and turned to leave. Wait. She called me back. I stopped without turning around. Legal has a document you need to sign tomorrow. Her voice returned to that flat, business-like tone. It's the inventor authorization for the patent renewal. Go over and sign it. I slowly turned around and looked at her. Under the light, the lines of her face were clear, yet strangely unfamiliar. I said nothing. What? She lifted a brow slightly. Is there a problem? No problem. After saying that, I walked out of the study and gently closed the door. Back in the living room, the news was still replaying. On the television screen was a close-up of Ryan. He smiled at the camera. The lenses of his gold-rimmed glasses reflected the lights from the banquet hall, making him look gentle and refined. The scrolling caption read, Ryan Shaw, Technical Director of Cloud Core Group. Annual salary plus bonus exceeding 100 million. I picked up the remote control and pressed the power button. The screen instantly went black. The surroundings fell into sudden dead silence. Our wedding photo hung on the wall. 5 years had passed. The edge of the frame had faded slightly. In the photo, Vivian smiled brightly and beautifully. I had my arm around her waist. Back then, there seemed to still be light in my eyes. I walked into the bedroom, bent down, and dragged out an old backpack from the bottom corner of the closet. It was the bag I used 3 years ago. Because of moisture, the zipper had begun to rust. When I pulled it open, it made an ear-piercing sound. Inside was a thick stack of A4 paper. All handwritten technical plans. Many page corners were already curled and worn, still bearing traces of coffee stains and instant noodle oil. On the lower right corner of every page were my name, the date, and the version number, written neatly. 237 pages in total. I flipped through them page by page, my fingertips brushing across familiar formulas and diagrams. When I reached page 37, my fingers stopped. In the blank area of that page, I had drawn a small smiley face. Because that day, I finally got a core algorithm to run independently. I remembered clearly. It was 4:30 in the morning. The entire RD building was dark except for the light in my lab. I sat alone in front of a screen full of data and grinned like an idiot. Vivian called me 3 times. Immersed in excitement, I missed all 3 calls. Later, she was very angry. She said I only cared about work and did not care about her at all. I did not explain. I placed the heavy stack of paper back into the backpack, pulled the rusty zipper shut, stood up, and walked to the study door again. Vivian was still on the phone inside. Her voice came through the thick door in fragments. Unclear. But her tone was noticeably more relaxed. Not the tense, cold voice she used with me. I returned to the bedroom, took out my phone, and scrolled through my contacts for a long time until I found a number almost forgotten. Mark Jensen. My senior from college. 3 years ahead of me. Now the founder of a tech company. 3 years ago, when he had just started his company, he came to me and said he was willing to pay a high price for my technical plan. I did not agree. At the time, I told him Vivian's company needed this patent, and I could not sell it. Looking back now, that persistence felt like a joke. I pressed call. There were 2 busy tones. Then the call connected. Ethan. His voice carried a trace of surprise. Well, this is rare. What made you think of calling me? Senior. There's something I want to discuss with you. Go ahead. I have several patents and related technical plans in my hands. They're from 3 years ago. But the underlying architecture is solid. With some fine-tuning and upgrades, the technical indicators can still be improved by at least 1 full level today. My voice was steady. On your side. Are you still interested? The other end of the call went silent for 2 seconds. Even his breathing disappeared. How many do you have? Mark's voice changed. It was a tone mixed with caution and excitement. Enough for you to open a brand new product line. Can we meet tomorrow? He was direct. Yes. Good. 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Come to my company. I'll send you the address on WhatsApp. Okay. After hanging up, I checked the time. 11:47 p.m. Outside the window, the city was still brightly lit. The distant sound of traffic was faint, like the breathing of a city that never slept. From the hallway came the sound of heels stepping on marble. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound was as evenly spaced as if measured with a ruler. Vivian pushed the door open. Seeing me still sitting on the edge of the bed in my daytime clothes, she froze for a moment. Still not sleeping. Can't sleep. She did not ask further. She walked straight into the bathroom and closed the door. Soon, the sound of running water filled the room. Behind the frosted glass partition, a blurry silhouette appeared. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my phone tightly. The screen still showed my chat with Mark. His last message had just arrived. See you tomorrow. The water in the bathroom stopped. Vivian came out wrapped in a towel. Wet hair dripping water. She looked at me and said in an emotionless, routine tone, "Don't forget to go to legal tomorrow." "Okay," I answered. She lay on the bed with her back to me and picked up her phone to scroll. The screen light illuminated the side of her face. I caught a glimpse of her profile picture. It had already been changed to a solo photo from tonight's celebration banquet. In the background was a red display board that read, "Cloud Core Group 1 Billion Celebration." I turned off the bedside lamp. The room sank into darkness. I lay with my eyes open. The outline of the ceiling blurred into a mass above me. Beside me, Vivian's breathing gradually became steady and long. She had fallen asleep. Just then, my phone vibrated softly under the pillow. The screen lit up, the faint light stinging my eyes. It was a message from Mark. "Do you have the original patent certificates?" I picked up the phone and replied on the lowest brightness setting. "Yes." He replied instantly. "Good. Bring them tomorrow. Don't worry. Your senior won't let you take a loss." I locked the screen and slid the phone back under the pillow. Outside the window, a late-night car passed by. Its headlights swept across the ceiling. Then the room sank back into deeper darkness. I could clearly hear my own heartbeat. One beat, then another. Very steady. Not as violent as I imagined it would be. I thought I would be angry. I thought I would lose sleep, tossing and turning, thinking about all those unfair things. But no. My mind was unusually clear. Only one thought remained. It was time to turn the page. Chapter 2. I woke before dawn. Without the slightest trace of sleepiness. Vivian was still sleeping, curled on her side. The blanket wrapped tightly around her, revealing only half of her quiet sleeping face. I climbed out of bed quietly, barefoot, and walked into the study. I gently closed the door, separating myself from the bedroom. Light on. On the desk. That stack of A4 paper was still spread there, yellowed slightly under the light. I spent 10 minutes reorganizing them in chronological order. The date on the first page was June 3 years ago. The last page was from February this year. That was the last time I modified the plan. I remembered. Ryan said there was a part he could not understand, and asked me to draw him a more detailed flowchart. I drew it. Later, he even signed his own name on that flowchart. I opened the bottom drawer of the desk. The red patent certificate booklet was pressed underneath. The gold-stamped characters on the cover reflected slightly under the light. I opened it. In the inventor field, the two words Ethan Carter were printed clearly. The patent owner was Cloud Core Technologies Inc. My finger rested on the name Ethan Carter for a long time. 3 years ago, when I got this certificate, I was so excited that I took a photo and sent it to Vivian. She replied after a while. Only one word. "Nice." Followed by a coffee emoji. I had thought she would be proud of me. At least she might say something like, "Honey, you're amazing." But she did not. I thought maybe she was too busy. The company was just starting out. Every day, she had to meet investors, hold meetings, negotiate partnerships, and handle endless pressure. I did not think too much about it. I placed the certificate back into the drawer and checked the time on my phone. 6:40 a.m. There was a new message from Mark. "Can you arrive before 10? I replied. "Yes." He quickly replied. "Good. I'll have legal prepare a contract template in advance. You can review it first when you arrive." I did not reply again. I locked the phone and leaned against the cold chair back, quietly looking outside the window. The sky was already bright. Morning sunlight squeezed through the gap in the curtains, casting a long, narrow patch of light across the desk, landing exactly on the first page of that stack of A4 paper. June 17th. 3 years ago. I remembered that day clearly. The weather was unusually humid. The central air conditioning in the lab had broken down. Even in a tank top, I was covered in sticky sweat. The final module of the core algorithm would not work no matter how I wrote it. I stared at the screen for 4 hours. My eyes so dry they almost cracked. At 8 that night, Vivian called and asked where I was. The lab. Not coming home for dinner again. Her voice carried exhaustion. Soon. I'll come back after fixing this bug. I had promised anxiously. She said okay and hung up without letting me say another word. I sat in front of the computer for another 3 hours. At 1:12 a.m. on the final test run, the screen showed all data passed. In that moment, I almost jumped from the chair. I paced around the empty lab 3 times in excitement. Then sat back down and ran it again because I still did not trust it. The result was still pass. I excitedly screenshotted the result and sent it to Vivian with one line. It worked. The core algorithm finally passed. I waited 10 minutes. No reply. I thought she was probably asleep. The next noon, she replied with one message. Nice. Remember to organize the related documents. After that, for more than 300 days, I almost lived in the lab, writing code, adjusting parameters, running tests, fixing bugs, running again, fixing again. When I was tired, I lay down on the folding cot in the corner for a little while. When I was hungry, I used hot water to soak a cup of instant noodles, then swallowed it with pickled vegetables. During that time, I lost 15 pounds. I developed lower back strain and cervical spondylosis. Even now, my left shoulder still ached from time to time. Vivian came to the lab 3 times in total. The first time was the mid-project report. She came with Ryan. She stood at the back of the conference room, listened for 10 minutes, said keep going to the team before leaving. The second time was New Year's Eve. She brought me a box of frozen dumplings, sat for 1 hour, and answered 5 business calls during that time. She said there was simply too much going on at the company. I said it was fine and told her to take care of her work. The third time was the final project acceptance meeting. At that meeting, she publicly announced that the project had been led and completed by Ryan. Every member of the core technical team received a $20,000 bonus. $20,000. When I received that money, I took the 3 colleagues who had fought beside me in the lab out for hot pot and spent $1,200. That night, they all got drunk. They patted my shoulder and said, "Ethan, you're the real beast. This patent was your work from beginning to end. Ryan was just a name on the project." I said, "Don't talk nonsense. Ryan was the project lead. Organization and management are also work." Later, Ryan was promoted to technical director. Later still, the patent began generating huge profits for the company. And later after that came the scene on television last night. I stood up and walked out of the study. Vivian was already awake, standing in front of the coffee machine in the kitchen. She wore a gray silk loungewear set. Her long hair was loosely tied into a ponytail. She looked softer than she usually did at the company. Hearing my footsteps, she asked without turning around, "Want coffee?" No. Only then did she turn back and glance at me. "Do you have something today?" I'm going out." "Where?" "To meet a friend." She did not ask further. Holding her coffee cup, she walked to the dining table and Saturday, then picked up her phone and began scrolling. The light from the screen reflected on her face. I glanced once. It was CloudCore's stock chart. A red arrow was pointing upward sharply. The increase was not small. "When are you going to legal to sign the patent renewal document?" She put down the cup, her tone as flat as if assigning a subordinate's task. "Legal said it must be filed before next week. This afternoon." "Fine. Don't delay too long." She stood. "I have an early meeting today. I'm leaving first." The front door closed. The whole apartment instantly went quiet. The coffee she had made herself was still steaming, but she had taken only 1 sip. I turned into the bedroom and pulled out the old backpack from the bottom of the closet. Besides the stack of A4 paper, there were a few other things inside. A black USB drive containing a complete backup of all source code, and a patent valuation report. Last year, I had paid for a third-party authoritative agency to prepare it myself. The report stated clearly in black and white that this patent portfolio's market valuation was between 80 million and 120 million. I zipped the backpack, changed into a clean shirt, and put on an old jacket I had not worn in a long time. Before leaving, I took a pair of dusty leather shoes from the shoe cabinet. I wiped them carefully twice with a towel. The surface barely regained a little shine. Downstairs, I hailed a cab. "Sir." "To the high-tech district. Innovation Tower." As the car slowly left the neighborhood, I subconsciously looked back. The window on the 17th floor was still open. The beige curtains were gently fluttering in the wind. That place we called home had been where I lived for 5 years. The thriving pot hose on the balcony was raised by me. The distinctive set of bowls and plates in the kitchen was chosen by me. That complicated washing machine was something I had spent 2 hours studying the manual to learn how to use. Mark Jensen's company occupied 3 entire floors of Innovation Tower in the high-tech district. The girl at the front desk made an internal call. In less than 2 minutes, Mark personally came out to greet me. He looked much the same as he had in college, only a little heavier and thinner on top. But when he smiled, it was still that honest, solid-looking face. He walked over and slapped my shoulder hard. It was not a light slap. "Long time no see, Ethan. Long time no see, senior." He led me into his office and closed the door behind us. The office was large. One entire wall was floor-to-ceiling windows, with an excellent view over half the city skyline. He made me a cup of tea, then leaned against his large desk. "About the patents you mentioned on the phone last night. I need to confirm something first." He paused, his expression turning serious. "Are you sure you personally have full disposal rights over these patents?" I pulled a photocopy of the patent certificate from the backpack, opened to the inventor page, and pushed it toward him. The core solution of this patent was independently completed by me. "I am the inventor," I said. "When I joined Cloud Core, I did sign an agreement. But the agreement only stipulates that the patent rights of service inventions belong to the company. It does not say the inventor cannot compete. Nor does it say the inventor's personal right of attribution can be transferred or stripped away." Mark took the copy and examined it carefully twice. "So what you mean is, I won't touch the patent ownership." I looked into his eyes and said word by word, "But as the inventor, I can authorize your company to use this technology exclusively in my personal capacity. Legally, inventor authorization and patent owner authorization are parallel concepts that do not conflict. If Cloud Core sues you for infringement in the future, I can appear in court personally and testify to the judge about the core invention process of this patent. And prove that it had nothing to do with their management or Ryan." Mark's eyes instantly lit up. He looked at me silently for several seconds, as if rapidly evaluating feasibility and risk. "Do you know what this means?" "I know," I said. "All of Cloud Core's current money-making flagship products are based on this patent's underlying algorithm framework. If they lose exclusive use of this technology, then either they come back to me and renegotiate, or the product line they are so proud of will have to stop." Mark picked up the phone on his desk and dialed an extension. "Have the legal director come over. Bring our highest standard blank authorization agreement template." After hanging up, he stared steadily at me. "You've thought this through. There's no turning back." "I've thought it through. And you and Vivian. Between me and her." I interrupted. "There's nothing left to discuss." Mark sighed and pulled a cigarette from the pack. "Back then, when I tried to recruit you, you refused to come. You said you wanted to help her and build her company with her. And the result?" I did not speak. The legal director soon knocked and entered, holding a thick stack of documents. Mark pointed at me and said, "This is Engineer Carter. We're signing an exclusive patent authorization agreement with him. Go draft the contract according to our company's best terms. For the authorization fee, take the highest valuation in the assessment report and add 20%. The legal director was visibly stunned. He glanced at me, eyes full of surprise, but asked nothing. He nodded and left again. The office quieted once more. Mark put out his cigarette and looked at me. "You've changed, Ethan." "Have I?" "Before, your eyes were filled with her. Now," he paused and pointed to the documents on the desk in front of me, "now your eyes are filled with these papers." I did not answer. Just then, the phone in my pocket vibrated. It was a message from Vivian. "Legal says 2 this afternoon. Don't be late." I did not reply. I flipped the phone face down on the table. Chapter 3. The legal director was astonishingly efficient. In less than 20 minutes, a printed contract was placed in front of me. 3 copies. A thick stack. On the cover, in bold black type, were the words, "Exclusive Patent Authorization Agreement." Mark pushed the contract toward me and handed over a heavy signing pen. "Read it carefully first. No rush." His tone was relaxed. But I could feel his eyes never leave the fingers I used to flip through the contract pages. I did read it carefully. Word by word. Sentence by sentence. I did not even miss the punctuation. From Article 1. General Provisions. To the final supplementary clauses. I spent a full 20 minutes reading. It was not that I did not trust Mark. It was a habit carved into my bones. 3 years ago, I failed to read the additional terms of CloudCore's employment agreement carefully, allowing Ryan to exploit the loophole. That was how everything today began. The authorization period is 5 years. I pointed at one clause in the contract. What about renewal? At the end of 5 years, you have absolute priority renewal rights. Mark explained. If the market changes, we sit down and renegotiate the authorization fee. It can only go higher, not lower. And breach liability. If you unilaterally breach the contract and authorize the patent to a third party, you compensate US 3 times the authorization fee. If we breach, we compensate you double. I nodded. That was fair. I turned to the final page. In the authorization fee section was a number. $48 million. Payment method. Within 3 business days after this agreement is signed, 40% of the total amount shall be prepaid. The remaining amount shall be paid in installments within 6 months after the product based on this patent officially launches. 48 million. This figure was slightly lower than the minimum I had expected, but still reasonable. The valuation reports $80 to $120 million was calculated based on the patent already being fully productized and generating continuous profits. What I was selling now was only authorization, not ownership transfer. Mark's company would still need to invest significant manpower and resources into secondary R&D before turning the patent into a truly profitable product. At this price, my senior was already being generous. I no longer hesitated. I removed the pen cap and wrote my name stroke by stroke in the Party B signature space on each contract. Mark took the contracts and carefully glanced at my signature. A relieved smile appeared on his face. Good. Tomorrow I'll have finance start the process. The first payment will hit your account by the day after tomorrow at the latest. Okay. He stood and extended his hand. I also stood and shook it firmly. Welcome aboard, Engineer Carter, he said. I'm not part of your company yet. I corrected. That's only a matter of time. He smiled. Once the technology authorization lands smoothly, I'll keep the technical consultant position open for you. I did not respond to that. He walked me all the way to the elevator. Just before the doors closed, he suddenly said, "By the way, there's something I should warn you about in advance. CloudCore will probably hear about this within the next 2 days at the latest. Be mentally prepared." I'm prepared. The elevator doors slowly closed. The red numbers descended floor by floor. I took out my phone. Vivian's urging message was still pinned at the top of the screen. Legal says 2 this afternoon. Don't be late. I still did not reply. I put the phone back into my pocket. When I walked out of Innovation Tower, the noon sun was a little dazzling. I instinctively narrowed my eyes. There was a small fast food shop by the road that had been open for many years. I walked in and ordered a bowl of steamed dumplings and a plate of noodles. The owner's wife still recognized me. As she wiped the table, she said, "Young man, you haven't been here for a long time." I said, "I've been a little busy." The steamed dumplings had just arrived when my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I answered. Ethan Carter. The voice on the other end sounded familiar, but I could not remember who it was at first. Who is this? Ryan Shaw. I picked up a dumpling, placed it in my mouth, slowly chewed and swallowed before speaking into the phone. What is it? The other end paused noticeably. He probably did not expect me to be this cold. I heard you went to Mark Jensen's company today. Technical Director Shaw is very well informed. Ethan. We were colleagues once. If there's anything to discuss, we can sit down and talk face to face. There's no need to. Director Shaw. I cut him off directly. What exactly are you calling to say? He paused again. About the patent authorization. Don't be impulsive. Impulsive. I know you're upset about the bonus, he said, suddenly softening his tone, like he was comforting an ignorant child. But the bonus distribution plan was decided by the board. It has nothing to do with me personally. If you're unsatisfied, I can help you fight for more from Ms. Lane. Ryan. I wrote that patent. The other end went quiet for a full 3 seconds. I know. His voice sank. But you should also know very clearly what signing that exclusive authorization means for Cloud Core. And for Ms. Lane, it means you finally become willing to sit down and talk to me. Do you think you're very smart? Mockery crept into his voice. I'm not smart, I said. A truly smart person wouldn't have signed that employment agreement 3 years ago without carefully reading the contract. You are not qualified to negotiate with me. His tone changed completely. Don't forget. Vivian is your wife. By signing this authorization and selling the company's core technology to a competitor. Have you thought about her situation? Did you? I asked back. When you opened champagne at the celebration banquet and split that $100 million bonus. Not one of you thought about me. Now that you're panicking, you've come to talk to me about feelings. Ethan. Don't make it sound so ugly. I'm hanging up. I pressed the end call button directly. The steamed dumplings were still steaming on the plate. I picked up another and put it in my mouth. The filling was a little salty. But not bad. The phone screen lit up again. This time it was a text from Ryan. Only one short line. You'll regret this. I placed the phone on the table and kept eating. After finishing lunch and paying, I walked out of the shop. The sun was still dazzling. For once, I lit a cigarette. Actually, I had quit for a long time. But today, I especially wanted one. I had only taken one drag when my phone rang again. Ryan's number. I answered. I'm waiting at the entrance of your neighborhood. He said. Let's meet and talk face to face. There's nothing to talk about. There is. About Vivian. After saying that, he hung up. I stood by the road, holding the cigarette I had only taken one drag from, watching the traffic flow endlessly in front of me. After 2 more drags, I found it tasteless. I casually stubbed it out and tossed it into the roadside trash can. I hailed a taxi. Sir. Back to the Parkview residence neighborhood. On the way home, I leaned against the taxi seat as street scenes flew backward frame by frame outside the window. The phone in my pocket remained silent. Vivian did not send any more messages. The car stopped at the entrance of the neighborhood. After paying and getting out, I immediately saw Ryan's black Mercedes S-Class parked brazenly by the sidewalk. He leaned against the car door. His suit jacket was off and draped inside the car. He wore only a neatly pressed white shirt. Sleeves rolled to the forearms. When he saw me, he straightened. Find somewhere to sit. Say it here. He looked at me with complicated eyes for a few seconds. Then took a craft envelope from the car and held it out. I did not reach for it. What is that? 500,000. He said. Ms. Lane asked me to hand it to you. Vivian asked you to give this. She said you don't spend much at home anyway. And you probably don't need so much. But this is compensation you deserve. What should be given to you should still be given. I stared at the envelope. It was not thick. At the seal, a bank card was clipped. The silver logo reflected harshly in the sunlight. As for the patent, stop getting involved. Ryan spoke in a tone of charity. The company has its own arrangements. Take this money and go do whatever you want. Don't worry. In a couple of years, when dividends rise, you'll get your share. I still did not speak. He pushed the envelope forward again, almost touching my chest. I looked at that bank card and suddenly found the entire thing ridiculous. 3 years ago, I wrote 237 pages of technical plans and spent more than 300 sleepless nights. In the end, I received a $20,000 bonus. Now, he was holding $500,000 and telling me not to get involved with something I had created with my own hands. Does Vivian know you came to see me? I asked. Yes. And these words are also what she asked you to say. More or less. I finally reached out and took the envelope. Ryan's face instantly showed a hint of relief and satisfaction. The kind of expression that said, finally, you know your place. Then, in front of him, I tore the envelope apart. Not for show. I truly used all my strength. The bank card inside was snapped in half by force, along with the torn craft paper. I threw it at his feet. His expression changed instantly. You. Go back and tell Vivian. I said calmly, looking at him. If she has something to say, she can come talk to me personally. Ethan. And you. I took a step forward and looked directly into his eyes. Aren't you capable? Aren't you the technical director? Then go write a patent yourself. Go earn that 100 million yourself. His lips moved. His face flushed red. In the end, not one word came out. I no longer looked at him and turned toward the neighborhood. You'll regret this. His voice came from behind me, carrying frustration. I did not look back. The elevator went up to the 17th floor. The doors opened. The living room lights were on. Vivian sat on the sofa. She had changed into loungewear and held a glass of water in her hand. Clearly, she had been waiting for me for a while. When she saw me enter, her gaze swept coldly over me. You're back. Legal called me and said you didn't go over all day. Yes. She set down the glass. The bottom of the cup hit the glass coffee table with a crisp sound. Why? I did not answer her. Instead, I walked straight to the dining table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. We looked at each other across several meters. She was waiting for an explanation. Vivian. I said. I wrote that patent. I know. Her tone already carried impatience. Then you should also know what I went out to do today. Mark Jensen. She frowned. You went to see him. I signed an exclusive authorization agreement with him. The expression on her face froze instantly. The air in the living room seemed to be sucked away in that moment. She stared hard at me. Her gaze quickly shifted from initial shock into cold anger. Ethan Carter. Are you insane? I'm not. Do you know what you're doing? That patent is a core company asset. I wrote that patent. I interrupted her again. The company was only my employer. I said. But that patent, from the first character to the final line of code, was completed by me alone. Inside my own brain. Don't you remember? 3 years ago. I stayed in the lab for more than 300 days. You came to see me 3 times in total. Each time, you stayed less than 10 minutes. She said nothing. Her lips pressed tightly together. I wrote that patent. Then Ryan took a $100 million bonus. Now you let him bring $500,000 to me and tell me not to get involved. Things aren't what you think. Then what are they? She opened her mouth but failed to offer any explanation. I stood, no longer looking at her, and walked straight into the bedroom. I closed the door. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I took out my phone, found Mark's WhatsApp, and sent a message. After the first payment arrives, please start productization as soon as possible. He replied instantly. Don't worry. By the way, I heard about what just happened. Ryan went to see you. Are you okay? I'm fine. Be careful of him. I did not reply. I tossed the phone beside the pillow. Then I heard the crisp sound of porcelain shattering in the living room. Vivian had probably smashed a cup. I did not go out. After about 10 minutes, footsteps came through the hallway. The bedroom door was pushed open hard. Vivian stood at the doorway. Her eyes were slightly red, but her gaze remained stubborn. Ethan. Let's talk. What is there to talk about? That authorization agreement. You haven't formally signed it yet. Right. I signed it. Her face went slightly white. Cancel it. She said. I have a way to cancel it. The patent is a service invention. You personally have no right to authorize it. You can try. She glared at me. If I win the lawsuit, I said calmly, your company's core product line will completely stop. You just released a $1 billion financial report. And countless investors are watching your stock price. How many limit downs do you want it to fall? She bit her lip. Her fingernails were almost digging into her palm. But she said nothing. I don't want to hurt you. I said. But don't force me either. She stood at the door for a long time. So long that I thought she might stand there forever. In the end, she said nothing and turned away. Her footsteps grew farther away. Then the master bedroom door slammed shut. I leaned against the headboard, staring blankly at the ceiling light. My phone screen lit up again. It was Mark. The first payment will hit tomorrow morning. I did not reply. Outside the window, night had completely fallen. Rows of city lights lit up like an endless sea of stars. The roar of traffic came from far away, distant yet real. I picked up the stack of A4 paper from the backpack and turned to a page in the middle. July 14th, 3 years ago. That day, I finished the final segment of the core algorithm. At the corner of the paper, I had drawn a small smiley face and written 4 words beside it. Finally passed. My finger gently brushed over those words. The paper had yellowed slightly with time, and the ink had faded a little. I set the page down. Starting tomorrow, everything would be different. Chapter 4. The parameters still don't match. I pointed at the red waveform on the projection screen and circled the abnormal peak with the laser pointer. Beside me, the new team's algorithm lead, Owen Clark, frowned at it for a while, then scratched the back of his already thinning head. Engineer Carter. I've already led the guys through 3 versions of threshold adjustments. The problem isn't the threshold. I placed my stack of A4 paper on the conference table, opened to page 47, and pushed it toward him. Look here. The convergence condition in the original patent algorithm is a squared error of less than 0.01. But our second-generation product must be compatible with existing production lines in the market. This condition has to be relaxed to 0.05. Otherwise, the overall computation speed can't keep up, and the product has no commercial value. All 6 members of the technical team gathered around the conference table. Dense code filled the screen, reflected on each focused and exhausted face. This was the 18th day since I formally joined Mark's company. The technical department had rented an entire new floor, but there had been no time for full renovation. A simple conference room had been created with temporary glass partitions. The air still carried a faint smell of paint. Mark was generous. He assigned me 6 experienced engineers, 2 for hardware, 3 specializing in algorithms, 1 responsible for testing. Owen, the algorithm lead, was 35 this year, and half his hair had already turned gray. Engineer Carter. If we relax the convergence condition to 0.05, the algorithm accuracy will drop by nearly 2 percentage points. Owen tapped the keyboard and brought up a clear comparison dataset. Can our potential clients accept that much error? They can. I opened another market research report. Mr. Jensen spoke with 3 prospective clients last week. Their current production line yield is 92%. As long as our new system can stably raise that to 95%, they're willing to sign trial contracts immediately. A 0.03 error fluctuation doesn't affect that final target at all. Owen nodded, suddenly enlightened, and immediately began breaking down new tasks on the whiteboard. Just then, my phone vibrated twice in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it vibrated again. Finally, a little impatient, I took it out. The screen showed 3 missed calls, all from the same number. Vivian's phone. I flipped the phone face down and placed it back on the table. For the hardware interface, I personally suggest using Freescale's solution. The hardware engineer, Luke, pointed at the complex circuit diagram. Compared to our current backup option, the cost can be reduced by 15%, and stability is better. The only downside is the development cycle may increase by 2 weeks. No. I rejected it immediately. The client requires that within 2 months, they must see a working prototype. 2 weeks is too long. We can't afford to wait. Then we can only use Intel's ready-made solution. How much more expensive? About $300 more per device. What is the total budget Mr. Jensen approved? The upper limit for single unit cost is $6,000. I quickly wrote and calculated on the whiteboard in front of me. The Intel solution plus our algorithm module would cost about $5,800 per unit. If we used Freescale, we could indeed push cost down to $5,300. But the schedule would definitely be delayed. Use Intel. I made the decision. The first batch of prototypes can have thin profit margins. It doesn't matter even if we don't make money. The key is establishing market reputation first. Luke nodded and immediately wrote it down in his notebook. The conference room temporarily quieted. Only keyboard tapping and pen tips scratching paper remained. Outside the window, the glass curtain wall of the building opposite reflected afternoon sunlight, somewhat dazzling. I glanced at the phone on the table. Under the 3 missed calls, there was a new voicemail. I hesitated, then picked up the phone, played it, and pressed it to my ear. Vivian's voice came through. It was calm, even carrying a trace of exhaustion I had never heard before. Ethan. When are you free? I want to talk to you. Not about work. After listening, I deleted the voicemail expressionlessly. Engineer Carter. Owen called me. About that parameter. Should we run another full simulation test? Run it. I want the results by 6 tonight. Okay. Everyone gradually packed up and left the conference room. I remained alone at the empty conference table, staring at the complex formulas on the whiteboard. A little lost. The door was not fully closed. Voices from the hallway outside drifted in intermittently. Engineer Carter is really amazing. So many lines of code. And he can see where the problem is at a glance. Of course. He's the father of this patent. He wrote that algorithm himself. How could he not know it well? Hey. I heard he completely fell out with Cloud Core. Shoo, keep your voice down. Don't gossip about company matters. Footsteps gradually faded. I stood and walked to the window. Then lit another cigarette. Mark's office was at the end of the hallway. The door was open. His voice came from inside as he talked on the phone. Full of confidence. Yes. The prototype will definitely be ready within 2 months. Don't worry. There's absolutely no technical problem. My senior is personally leading development. Good. Then we'll meet next Thursday to discuss details. After hanging up, he leaned out and happened to see me standing in the hallway. He waved. I walked over. Vivian called me, he said, leaning back in the large office chair, unconsciously spinning a pen in his hand. What did she say? She asked about your situation. I said you're doing well. The technical department has been straightened out. And the second-generation product is being developed at full speed. And she asked whether the exclusive authorization agreement we signed has any room for discussion. He stopped spinning the pen and stared at me. I told her no. The contract has been signed. The first payment has arrived. And it has legal effect. I said nothing. I put out the cigarette and sat in the chair across from his desk. She said she could add money. Mark threw the pen onto the desk. Double the authorization fee. Even triple. As long as we give up exclusive use. How did you answer? I said I'm not making that money. He smiled. Ethan. In the years you weren't here, I've seen too many people sell technology like cabbage and end up with nothing left. If I turn around and do business with Vivian now, then my company might as well close. I nodded and did not thank him again. Some words lose weight when said too many times. Mark took out a pack of cigarettes from a drawer, handed me one, and lit one for himself. By the way, when are you planning to handle things with her? What things? Divorce procedures. He exhaled a ring of smoke. The state you two are in now isn't much different from separation. I passed by your neighborhood 2 days ago and saw her Mercedes parked in the underground garage, covered with a thick layer of dust. She probably hasn't been going home much either. I did not know whether she had gone home. Since the day she smashed the cup, we had not spoken again. I had moved into a budget hotel near the company. A backpack held all my belongings. That so-called home I had not returned to for almost 20 days. After the second-generation product launches, I said, now isn't the time. Mark stared at me for a few seconds and nodded. Fine. As long as you know what you're doing. He stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the dense city buildings. By the way, next week's technology summit. You'll speak for me. What summit? The Industrial Intelligence Summit led by the Department of Industry and Technology. Everyone important in the industry will be there. Cloud Core will also send people. I heard Ryan is leading their team. He turned to look at me. You go on stage and present our second-generation solution. They sit below and listen. Don't you think that scene is interesting? I was silent for 2 seconds. Fine. I'll go. When I left Mark's office, the lights at the end of the hallway were warm yellow. A newly hired cleaning lady was pushing a mop from a distance. Seeing me, she nodded stiffly, then lowered her head and continued working. I returned to the temporary workstation and opened my computer. The simulation test from earlier was still running. The progress bar had reached 73%. Red and green data lines slowly advanced. Owen was beside me, typing loudly and muttering under his breath. Engineer Carter. Your idea this afternoon was completely right. He suddenly stopped and turned to me. After relaxing the convergence condition, code redundancy was cut by more than half. We ran a 300 sample test just now, and all data stayed above 95.2%. Good. And that interface issue that I searched online just now. Intel's ready-made solution has an existing development kit. Adapting it to our algorithm requires changing fewer than 100 lines of code. Luke said he can assemble the first prototype within 10 days at most. Don't rush. Finish 2 full rounds of testing before touching hardware. Understood. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my aching temples. The time at the bottom right of the computer jumped to 5:47 p.m. Outside, evening rush hour began appearing. Red tail lights connected into a long line, slowly creeping toward every direction of the city. My phone screen lit again. This time it was a text from an unfamiliar number. I opened it. Ethan. This is Ryan. The Technology Summit is next Thursday. I heard you're giving a presentation. Don't blame me for not warning you. CloudCore's legal team has already prepared patent infringement materials. The moment you dare display that technology publicly, we'll sue you immediately. After reading it, I expressionlessly deleted the message too. At 8 that night, I returned to the hotel. The room was small. 1 bed, 1 closet, 1 writing desk. My laptop was still open on the desk. I had just taken off my jacket when my phone rang. Vivian. I answered. Ethan. Her voice came through slightly distorted. You finally answered. Say it. That I want to see you. Anything can be said over the phone. Some things can't be explained clearly over the phone. She paused, as if carefully choosing her words. I want to apologize to you in person. I held the phone and did not answer immediately. Outside the window, city lights lit up one patch after another. Neon flickered in the distance, casting mottled light across the hotel room's gray curtains. You have nothing to apologize to me for. I said. Ethan. I mean it. My voice was flat. You made the choice you believed was right. I made the choice I believed was right. Between us, there is no question of who wronged whom. We simply walked onto different roads. The other end was silent for a long time. So long I thought she had hung up. Ethan. I'm pregnant. Her voice suddenly became very soft. So soft a gust of wind could have blown it away. My fingers holding the phone tightened unconsciously. 2 months. Is it mine? What do you think? Her tone carried bitter mockery. I leaned against the headboard. The ceiling light was a little harsh. I closed my eyes. My mind spun rapidly, like a high-speed computer processing countless pieces of information at once. When? I asked. The week before you moved out. I originally wanted to tell you, but I never found the words. Vivian. You don't need to give me an answer now. She interrupted me. I just wanted you to know. Think it through. When you've thought it through, contact me. She hung up. The room sank back into silence. Only the air conditioner vent blew warm air. I placed the phone beside the pillow and lay flat on the bed, staring at the ceiling. I did not know how long passed before the phone vibrated again. It was Mark. The secretary prepared a draft of your speech for next week's Technology Summit and sent it to your email. Take a look. Change whatever you want. I replied with one word. Okay. Then I turned off the light, rolled over, and wrapped the blanket tight around me. In the darkness, the glow from the phone screen went out. Everything sank fully into night. The next morning, I got up at 7 as usual. I washed, changed, went downstairs for a simple breakfast. When I returned to the company, Owen was already busy in the temporary lab with several others. Various circuit boards and testing instruments lay across the tables. Morning. Engineer Carter. Owen lifted his head. Dark circles obvious under his eyes. The simulation test from last night came out. All passed. He handed me a printed sheet dense with data. I took it and scanned it. My gaze stopped at the summary row at the bottom. Comprehensive accuracy, 95.47%. This number was nearly half a percentage point higher than our original target. Beautiful work, I said. Owen chuckled twice, tired lines gathering at the corners of his eyes. At 10 in the morning, Mark gathered the entire department for a short mobilization meeting. The theme of the meeting was simple. Prepare fully for next Thursday's Department of Industry and Technology Summit demonstration. At this summit, we would not only deliver a keynote speech, but also set up an experience area on site, allowing every attending industry expert and potential client to personally operate our prototype. This is the first time our team is appearing on the highest level stage in the industry. Mark stood at the front, his voice loud. The data must be complete. The demonstration must be smooth. Don't waste a single unnecessary sentence. Remember this: that we don't need everyone to understand how powerful our technology is. We only need everyone to see one thing clearly. This system is at least one generation ahead of every competing product on the market. After the meeting ended, Luke came to me holding a half-assembled prototype. Looking nervous. Engineer Carter, look at this interface position. It's different from what we designed in the drawings. If we assemble it according to the drawing, the motherboard will hit the inner wall of the case. And heat dissipation definitely won't work. I bent down and examined the half-finished prototype closely. The internal space was indeed tight. Components were densely arranged, as if forcibly stuffed inside. Rotate the motherboard 90 degrees. I said. Redesign the routing. Then the schedule. I'll modify it. I took the screwdriver from his hand. You pull up the circuit diagram. I'll call positions. And you draw the lines. The entire afternoon, Luke and I stayed in the lab, adjusting the internal layout of the prototype again and again. From 3 to 6. We tried 4 versions. On the 4th version, every component finally fit into the case perfectly, while still leaving enough space for heat dissipation. Luke wiped the sweat from his forehead and let out a long breath. Engineer Carter, your hands-on ability is insane. I thought you only wrote code. When you spend long enough in a lab, you have to do everything yourself. I set down the screwdriver. All right. That's enough for today. Go home and rest. Hardware testing starts tomorrow. Got it. When I walked out of the lab, the sky outside had already darkened. Passing Mark's office, I saw the door open. He was sitting at the computer reading something. Hearing footsteps, he looked up and called me in. Ryan sent another legal letter to the company today. He turned the monitor toward me. The language is pretty harsh. They say our technical solution is suspected of infringing CloudCore's patent rights and demand we immediately stop all R&D activities, or they'll pursue legal responsibility. How do you plan to respond? I had legal draft a reply of equal tone. The core sentence is, our technical solution is based on legal authorization from inventor Ethan Carter and does not constitute infringement. He closed the computer screen and looked at me. Ethan, next week's summit is a good opportunity to clarify. Go on stage and explain the underlying principles thoroughly. Let everyone see who this thing truly belongs to. I know. One more thing. His expression turned slightly serious. I received news that CloudCore has been privately contacting investment institutions recently, planning a new financing round. The core selling point of the valuation is that patent technology. If they raise money in this round, things could become much more complicated. They won't raise it. Mark raised a brow. I understand the commercial value of that technology better than anyone. I said. I know how much it's worth and what kind of people are willing to pay what price. If CloudCore uses this patent to raise financing, the first thing investment banks will do is technical due diligence. Once they conduct due diligence, every problem will be exposed. That's true. But I still suggest you prepare early. After next week's summit, things will ferment faster than we expect. I understand. After leaving Mark's office, there were few people left in the hallway. I returned to my workstation, archived the circuit diagrams modified today, and reread the draft speech for the summit in my email. The secretary's draft was steady and standard. There was no major issue, but it lacked sharpness. I opened the document and added one sentence to the end of the technical highlights section. All core algorithms of this solution are based on independent original R&D and do not rely on any third-party authorization. Save. Shut down. After returning to the hotel, I showered and lay on the bed scrolling through my phone. Vivian's number lay quietly in my contacts. I tapped it, backed out, tapped it again, and backed out again. After repeating that several times, I finally called. The phone rang twice before connecting. Ethan. Her voice was calmer than last night, but I could still hear a barely perceptible tremor. I thought about what you said. After the summit ends, let's find a time and talk properly. The other end was quiet for about 5 seconds. Okay. Her voice was very soft. Then I'll hang up first. Wait. She stopped me. I'll also attend next week's summit. I know. When the time comes. She paused. Forget it. We'll talk then. Prepare well. After hanging up, I placed the phone on the nightstand and turned off the light. In the darkness, I lay with my eyes open, watching a narrow streak of city light seep through the curtain gap and project onto the ceiling. The week passed faster than I expected. On Wednesday, the day before the summit, Mark booked a medium-sized conference room beside the company and organized an internal rehearsal. I stood on the stage and ran through the entire process I would deliver the next day in front of a dozen colleagues. From technical background to core algorithm. Then prototype demonstration. 40 minutes total. No stumbles. Mark sat in the last row and did not interrupt once. Only when I finished the final word did he lead the applause. Stable enough. He said. Tomorrow. Do exactly that. After the rehearsal ended, Owen came over and lowered his voice. Engineer Carter. I heard CloudCore is bringing a new solution tomorrow too. Ryan is the speaker. Are they trying to go head-to-head with us? Let them. I said. Tomorrow. Everyone will be watching. Technology is simple. Whether it works or not. People know the moment they try it. On Thursday morning, I woke before my alarm. The sky was not fully bright yet, but sparse headlights were already visible on the overpass outside the hotel window. I took a cold shower, changed into the dark gray suit I had prepared in advance, placed my speech and USB drive into my briefcase, and straightened my tie in front of the mirror. The man in the mirror had a few more degrees of steadiness between the brows than 3 years ago. His jawline was sharper too, made more defined by the weight lost recently. I nodded slightly. When I arrived by taxi at the summit venue, a long line had already formed at the entrance. There were many attendees. Designer suits and dark coats blended into a crowd. I showed my credentials and entered backstage through the side entrance. The backstage area was messier than the front. Equipment boxes and cables were piled everywhere. Mark had already arrived and was helping several technicians debug the prototype at our booth. Seeing me, he gave a thumbs up. You look ready. I am. Our presentation is fourth on the agenda. The first 3 are old established manufacturers, so their content will probably be conservative. He handed me a bottle of water. When it's your turn, don't get stage fright. There aren't many people in the audience who truly understand technology. Once you stun them, everything afterward will be easier. I took the water, unscrewed the cap, and drank. The host at the front had already begun opening remarks. His voice came through the sound system into the backstage area with a slight electronic quality. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes, running through the structure of the speech in my mind once more. The fourth company to present was CloudCore. Ryan wore a finely tailored navy suit and his signature gold-rimmed glasses. He walked calmly onto the stage. The light struck him, making him look polished and confident. He spoke about CloudCore's next-generation smart production line solution. The core selling point was an underlying algorithm framework based on exclusive patent technology. During the speech, he occasionally tapped the edge of the podium with his finger, a deliberately constructed relaxed posture. I watched the live stream feed on the backstage monitor, expressionless. When Ryan finished, the host announced my company's name. I took a deep breath and walked out through the side door. The moment the spotlight hit my face, my vision became bright white. Several hundred pairs of eyes below looked toward me at once. I walked to the center podium, plugged the USB drive into the port, and adjusted the microphone height. Good afternoon, experts and colleagues. I am Ethan Carter, technical consultant at Jensen Technologies. A polite round of applause sounded from the audience. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared on the enormous screen behind me. There were no fancy images or animations. Only a concise title and a data table. Today, I'm going to present a brand new industrial smart production line control solution. The core algorithm of this solution was independently developed by me. 3 years ago, It was still a pile of drafts written on A4 paper. Today, it has become the prototype in front of you. I turned slightly and pointed toward the booth. The staff pushed a prototype to the side of the stage at the right time. Next, I'll use 5 minutes to break down the underlying logic of this algorithm. For the next 10 minutes, I explained convergence conditions, data processing flows, hardware adaptation, and practical application scenarios. I did not look at the speech. There was not a single unnecessary sentence. Engineers in the audience began raising phones to take pictures. Others quickly wrote notes in notebooks. When I reached the final section, I turned to the appendix page at the back of my A4 papers and pointed at one line of code on the big screen. It was the most critical line of the entire algorithm. This line of code was written by me at 1:12 a.m. on June 17. 3 years ago. The audience was quiet for 2 seconds. Then applause suddenly sounded. It went from scattered to dense, finally filling almost the entire venue. I bowed slightly and prepared to leave the stage. Just then, a person in the middle of the second row suddenly stood. It was Ryan. His expression was tight. An unhealthy red flushed the face behind his gold-rimmed glasses. Ignoring the surprised gazes around him, he spoke directly. "Mr. Carter, I have a question." The atmosphere in the venue changed instantly. Everyone turned to look at him, then turned back to me. "Go ahead." I stood on the stage, looking down at him. "You just claimed this solution was independently developed by you. But as far as I know, the core framework of this technology applied for a patent 3 years ago. And the patent owner is Cloud Core Technologies Inc. May I ask, as a former Cloud Core employee, how can you prove that your current solution does not infringe Cloud Core's patent rights?" His voice was not loud, but because the venue was too quiet, every word reached everyone's ears. Whispers began rising in the audience. I looked at Ryan and remained silent for 2 seconds. Then I smiled. I turned and clicked to the final slide. It was a clear scan of the patent certificate. In the inventor field, the name Ethan Carter had been deliberately circled with a red box. "Director Shaw." My voice was steady. "The patent you just mentioned lists me as the inventor. The patent certificate is here. It is written clearly in black and white. As a technical director, you should know that inventor attribution rights and patent ownership are 2 separate concepts. I have no right to transfer patent ownership. But as the inventor, I have the right to conduct secondary development based on my own technical conception." The audience quieted again. Ryan's face became even uglier under the stage lights. "One more thing," I continued. "From concept to draft, then final testing and validation. That patent was completed entirely by me. As the so-called project lead, during the entire R&D cycle, you did not write one line of code, did not adjust one parameter, and did not even read through all technical documents once. These facts can be testified to by many former Cloud Core colleagues present here today." The discussion in the venue grew louder. People began whispering. Some raised phones to record. Ryan stood below the stage. His lips moved, but not a single word came out. Then he abruptly sat back down, his entire body seeming to lose strength and sink into the chair. I did not look at him again. I turned and walked off the stage. Backstage, Mark came up and slapped my back hard. "Beautiful." I took the water he handed me and drank a large mouthful. On the backstage television screen, the host was introducing the next agenda item. I could see Ryan in the audience lowering his head and typing rapidly on his phone. Probably messaging someone. Maybe Vivian. I did not think about it further. For the rest of the afternoon, our booth was surrounded by people. Owen and Luke were busy demonstrating prototype operations to various experts. I sat behind the booth and received inquiries from several potential clients. By evening, the crowd finally thinned. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Vivian. "Congratulations. I didn't go on stage today. I was sitting in the last row the whole time. You spoke really well." I looked at the message and did not reply immediately. After 2 seconds, another message popped up. "You said we would talk after the summit. I'll be here these 2 days. Whenever you're free, tell me." I locked the screen and put the phone back in my pocket. At 8 that night, the summit networking dinner was held in the hotel banquet hall next door. I changed into casual clothes and went over with Mark. The buffet tables were filled with all kinds of hot and cold dishes. Crystal chandeliers shone dazzlingly. Businesspeople in proper attire gathered in small groups, chatting amid clinking glasses. I had just walked to a corner with a glass of juice when a familiar male voice sounded behind me. "Ethan." I turned. Ryan stood 3 steps behind me. He had changed into a dark shirt, with the top button at the collar undone. His hair was a little messy, and he looked much more haggard than he had on stage that afternoon. "Didn't see Ms. Lane at the dinner," I said. "She didn't come tonight." His tone was stiff. "She said she wasn't feeling well and went back to the hotel first." Oh. There were several steps between us. Neither of us spoke first. In the end, he broke the silence. "You went a little too far this afternoon." I stated facts. "Facts?" He suddenly laughed. But the smile did not reach his eyes. "You think you know all the facts, Ryan. What exactly are you trying to say?" He took 2 steps forward and lowered his voice, low enough that only the 2 of us could hear. "That patent was indeed written by you. But Ethan, do you know why only your name was on the inventor materials at first?" I looked at him and did not speak. "Because Vivian told me at the time that your personality was too dull and you didn't understand human relations. If the patent was attached to your name, dealing with investors later would be troublesome. So she removed your name from the project declaration form and replaced it with mine." My fingers around the glass tightened slightly. The cold glass wall pressed into my skin. "For 3 years. You always thought I stole your credit. Fine. I admit I did benefit. But the person who truly made that decision wasn't me." "You've been drinking," I said calmly. "I haven't." He stared into my eyes. "I just think that at this point, you deserve to know the truth. You hated the wrong person. Ethan. If you want to hate someone, hate your good wife." After saying that, he turned and left. I stood in the corner of the banquet hall. The ice cubes in my juice slowly melted. A fine layer of condensation formed on the outside of the glass. Not far away, a table of people discussed something enthusiastically. Their laughter drifted over, sounding distant. Mark walked over from nearby and looked at me standing alone. "What happened? Did that bastard Ryan come bother you again?" "No." I set down the glass. "Senior, I have something to handle. I'm leaving first. See you at the company tomorrow." "Hey." I did not wait for him to say more. I had already walked out of the banquet hall. The hallway was quiet. The heating was strong. But I could not feel the temperature. I walked along the corridor to the elevator and pressed the down button. The numbers jumped floor by floor. Finally, they stopped at 1. The doors opened. I entered, leaned against the cold metal wall, and closed my eyes. The elevator descended to the 1st floor. The doors opened. Several taxis were parked outside the lobby's automatic doors. I walked over and opened the back door of one. "Sir." "To the Grandview Hotel." That was the designated reception hotel for the summit. Vivian was staying there tonight. The taxi traveled through the night. Streetlights swept backward outside the window, pulling yellow bands of light. I leaned back and replayed Ryan's words again and again in my mind. The person who truly made that decision wasn't me. The hotel lobby was bright and luxurious. Warm lights reflected on the marble floor, mirroring moving silhouettes. At the front desk, I gave the room number. The receptionist checked and politely told me, "Ms. Lane's room is 1217. Would you like me to call and confirm for you?" "No need. I'll go up myself." The elevator went to the 12th floor. The hallway was covered in thick carpet, making almost no sound when walked on. I stopped in front of room 1217. I raised my hand and knocked twice. Footsteps came from inside. Then came the click of the door lock turning. The door opened. Vivian wore the hotel's white bathrobe. Her hair was still slightly damp, as if she had just showered. Seeing me, she clearly froze. The expression in her eyes slowly changed from surprise into something complicated and hard to describe. "Ethan, why are you here?" "Inside," I said. She stepped aside. The room was spacious. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows was the city's night view. Countless lights as dazzling as a river of stars. She had not closed the curtains. The lights came through the glass and spread across the dark carpet in gentle halos. She sat on the edge of the sofa, hands folded on her knees, looking up at me. I stood by the window, my back to the city lights, watching her. Ryan told me something just now. I began. Her shoulders tightened slightly. He said that back then. The inventor list on the patent was originally supposed to have my name. But you made the decision to remove it. The air in the room froze. Vivian's face turned slightly pale under the soft lighting. She lowered her head, fingers twisting together, and did not speak for a long time. Is it true? I asked. After about 10 seconds of silence, she finally lifted her head. Her eyes were red, but her voice was still relatively steady. Yes. Although I had already heard the answer from Ryan. When she personally admitted it, my chest still felt as if something had slammed into it. Why? Because at that time, the company was at the most critical point of a financing round. Her voice carried a barely perceptible tremor. The investors said you were only a technical employee, with no commercial background or management experience. They trusted the project lead more, in order to secure the money as quickly as possible. So you sold me for one round of financing. Ethan. I didn't. Of course you did. I interrupted her. 3 years ago. You made that decision. 3 years later. You asked me to go to legal and sign that authorization document. From beginning to end. You never once asked whether I was willing. She stood and quickly walked to me, reaching to grab my arm. I stepped back. Her hand caught empty air, stopped midair, then slowly dropped. I know I was wrong. Her voice finally carried an obvious sob. I know now. But back then. I really had no choice. There were so many employees whose salaries needed to be paid. Investors were pressing me every day. Vivian. She stopped and looked at me. That patent was worth $100 million. I said calmly. It's worth more now. For that financing round. You gave up the portion that should have belonged to me. Now you're telling me you had no choice. She said nothing. Tears finally slid down her face. One by one. They fell onto the collar of the bathrobe. I didn't come today to settle accounts with you. I said. I only wanted to hear you admit it yourself. I heard it. Now. Everything that needed to be said between us has been said. I turned toward the door. Ethan. Her voice came from behind me. Crying. The child. The child is innocent. I stopped without turning back. I know. I said. When everything is over, I'll sit down with you and discuss custody and support. But right now, Vivian, there's nothing else between us to discuss. I opened the door and walked out. The hallway still had thick carpet. My footsteps landed almost silently. The elevator doors slowly opened before me. I walked in and pressed the first floor button. As the elevator descended, I leaned against the wall, looked up at the ceiling light, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Mark. The dinner is over. Ryan left early. His face looked awful. I did not reply. I walked out of the hotel doors. The night wind blew over, carrying the faint cold of early winter. The trees lining both sides of the street had already lost most of their leaves. Bare branches cast long, thin shadows under the streetlights. I stood by the road and hailed a taxi. Sir. Back to my hotel. After the car started, I leaned against the seat and rolled the window down a crack. Cold wind poured in, hitting my face. It was cold, but clear. The phone vibrated again. Another message from Mark. By the way, after CloudCore's last speaker finished this afternoon, several investors left directly. I heard they were originally supposed to discuss CloudCore's financing round. You know what that means. I looked at the message. The corner of my mouth pulled slightly. Then I locked the screen and put the phone back into my pocket. The taxi merged into the city's nighttime traffic. Neon lights flashed on and off past the windows. I watched the street scenes fly backward. Familiar buildings and unfamiliar buildings. Windows lit and dark. Everything stayed quietly silent in the night. The next morning, I went to the company as usual. I had just sat at my workstation when Owen ran over excitedly. Phone in hand. Engineer Carter. Look at today's industry news. He handed me the phone. On the screen was a headline from a technology media outlet, written in unusually eye-catching words. Explosive reveal at Department of Industry Technology Summit. CloudCore Group's core patent inventor was actually a former ordinary engineer, Ryan Shaw, accused of stealing credit, sparking industry outrage. The article image showed me standing on the stage yesterday, pointing to the patent certificate scan on the big screen behind me. In the photo, I stood slightly sideways, my finger aimed at the screen, expression focused and steady. I scrolled down. The comments had already exploded. Damn. Isn't this classic workplace bullying? The inventor's work got taken by his wife's company, and his boss claimed credit and received $100 million bonus. CloudCore's stock dropped 4 points at open today. Investors sure ran fast. Ryan Shaw finally got exposed. Serves him right. I know Ethan Carter. He really was a pure technical guy. Back then, he stayed in the lab more than 10 hours a day. We all thought he had it rough. I didn't expect him to suffer through all that and still not even get proper credit. I returned the phone to Owen and calmly opened my own computer. Engineer Carter. You're not excited. Owen looked at me in surprise. There's nothing to be excited about. This isn't over. What else is there? I glanced at him. CloudCore won't give up this easily. Sure enough. At 10:30 in the morning, Mark called me into his office. He sat in the boss's chair, holding a printed legal letter, expression half smiling. CloudCore's legal team officially sued. He pushed the letter in front of me. They're suing us for infringement, demanding we immediately stop product development and compensate losses. On what basis? They accuse us of using their patented technology for commercial development without permission from the patent owner, who is listed as inventor on their patent. Ryan Shaw. I smiled. Mark smiled too. They definitely didn't tell their legal team the truth. If this lawsuit really goes to court, and the court does a technical comparison and finds over 80% technical common origin between your current solution and the original patent, the patent owner will have to prove he truly is the inventor. What can Ryan use to prove it? He can't even explain the most basic code logic. Then let's fight, I said. I already had legal prepare the defense materials. Mark tossed the legal letter aside. Also, there's a phone conference this afternoon from the Department of Industry and Technology. They said they want to understand the background of this patent ownership issue. You'll take it? Fine. When I left Mark's office, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. The location showed Washington. I answered. Is this Mr. Ethan Carter? The voice on the other end was polite. I'm a staff member from the Office of Industrial Policy. We'd like to verify some information regarding the patent ownership issue you mentioned at yesterday's summit. Go ahead. After hanging up, I stood in the hallway. Noon sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, lighting the entire hallway brightly. At the workstation opposite, Owen and several others were gathered together, discussing something heatedly. Faint words drifted over. Stock price. Limit down. Trending. I returned to my workstation and opened my computer. There was a new email in my inbox. The sender was the third-party authoritative evaluation agency. The subject read, Reassessment Report regarding CloudCore Technologies Incorporated Core Patent Portfolio. I opened it and read 2 lines. Then I forwarded it to Mark. Mark replied instantly. Got it. Very valuable. Now here's the problem. CloudCore wanted to use this patent to raise financing. But every investor who sees the news will withdraw. Ryan's big mouth just ruined the whole company. I did not reply, because I saw another pop-up. A friend had messaged me. Ethan, did you see the trending topic? I opened the link. The third topic on the trending list was #CloudCore patent fraud hashtag. The top liked post was a screenshot from an anonymous user. It was an internal CloudCore project declaration form from 3 years ago. In the project lead field was Ryan Shaw's name. But at the very bottom, there was a tiny note. Core technical solution independently completed by Ethan Carter. Someone had dug out this internal file and uploaded it online. The comments exploded again. The evidence is out. This still doesn't count as stealing credit. What about Vivian Lane? As chairwoman, she didn't know. I think the chairwoman definitely knew. She smiled so happily on stage, giving Ryan the bonus. Poor Ethan Carter. Married a heartless woman. I closed the trending page and took a sip from the water cup on my desk. At 2 in the afternoon. Vivian called. Her voice was hoarse. Like she had cried for a long time. Ethan. Did you see the things online? I did. Ryan. Ryan submitted his resignation this morning. The company stock has fallen 7 points already. Investors have been calling all afternoon. All asking about the patent. She took a deep breath. Ethan. Can you say something for the company? Even just one statement saying the patent has no legal dispute. That we can negotiate a solution with you. Vivian. 3 years ago. When you removed my name. Why didn't you think about negotiating with me then? The other end went quiet. I don't owe you anything. I said. And I don't owe CloudCore anything. I wrote that patent. The right of attribution is mine. Now all the facts are out. You chose to take things this far yourselves. I can't help you. Do you really have to be this heartless? You were more heartless than I am when you removed my name. She remained silent for a long time. Then she hung up. I placed the phone on the desk and sat quietly for a while, looking at the ended call record on the screen. Over the next few days, things began developing even faster. CloudCore's legal team discovered during the lawsuit process that their evidence was seriously insufficient and voluntarily applied to withdraw the case. Meanwhile, violent turmoil broke out inside the company. Ryan's resignation was confirmed. Immediately after that came a wave of collective resignations from the technical R&D department. Those former colleagues who had worked with me on the project began speaking out on social media, telling the true story of how the patent was born. In the third week, Jensen Technologies completed final testing on the second-generation prototype. Its overall performance fully exceeded CloudCore's existing product line. 3 prospective clients signed trial contracts on the same day. In the fourth week, the Department of Industry and Technology officially intervened in the patent dispute investigation. The expert panel issued a technical appraisal report. The conclusion clearly identified Ethan Carter as the core inventor of the patent, and Ryan Shaw's attribution as technically unreasonable. This report was directly copied to the National Intellectual Property Authority. In the fifth week, Vivian asked to meet me in her personal capacity. The location was a quiet tea room. She had lost a lot of weight compared to a month ago. Her cheekbones looked sharper, and there were faint dark circles under her eyes. She wore a khaki coat, making her whole person look thinner. I'm preparing to resign as chairwoman of CloudCore. She held a teacup but did not drink. The board has already approved it. Formal handover will happen next month. I said nothing. You've seen the company's current situation. The stock has fallen nearly 30%. Investor confidence has collapsed. Several major clients are saying they need to reevaluate partnership terms. After Ryan left, half the technical team basically scattered. She set down the teacup and looked out the window. I messed everything up. What are you going to do? Bring in a professional manager to take over and stabilize existing business. She turned back to look at me. As for the patent, before I leave, I will issue an official statement as chairwoman acknowledging your core contribution to the patent R&D and correcting all public materials. That is what you should do. I know. Her voice was very soft. There's one more thing. I want to formally and publicly return the compensation that belongs to you. The company will make retroactive adjustments in future profit distribution according to inventor contribution. It's late, but I still want to give you what should have been yours. I don't need it. I said. The money I earned myself is already enough. She looked at me. Her eyes slowly reddened. But she held back and did not cry. Ethan. Can we? No. I knew what she wanted to ask. She closed her eyes and opened them again after several seconds. Okay. She said only that one word. I stood, preparing to leave. When I reached the door, I paused without turning back. As for the child, after everything settles, we can discuss it in detail. If you want custody, I can pay support. But as for feelings, Vivian, we can't go back. No sound came from behind me. I opened the door and walked out. Outside, the street was warm with sunlight. New leaves had begun sprouting on the roadside trees. Tender green leaves swaying gently in the breeze. I walked along the sidewalk for a while and stopped at an intersection to wait for the light. Beside me stood several students in uniforms, chattering together about something. The light turned green. I followed the crowd across the street. My phone rang. It was Mark. Ethan. Good news. We just received approval for a key support project from the Department of Industry and Technology. The first batch of national subsidy funds arrives next week. Your second-generation solution is highly valued by them. They want to promote it nationwide as an industry benchmark case. Also, next month the company is preparing a small financing round specifically to expand your technical department. Whoever you want. Whatever equipment you need. Whatever budget. Name it yourself. I walked along the sidewalk. Sunlight warm on my back. Senior. Thank you. The other end paused. Then came Mark's cheerful laugh. What are you thanking me for? It's your own ability. All right. Come back and talk later. Owen and the others are waiting for you to hold a meeting. After hanging up, I put the phone in my pocket and quickened my pace toward the company. 3 months later, the second-generation product went online simultaneously in 12 factories nationwide. All operating data met standards. Client satisfaction was 100%. The company's valuation nearly tripled in a single quarter. At the all-hands meeting, Mark grinned from ear to ear and announced an 8-figure year-end bonus for the technical team on the spot. The night Owen received his bonus, he got completely drunk. He grabbed my hand, eyes red, and said, "Engineer Carter, I'm following you for the rest of my life." I said nothing. I only patted his shoulder. On CloudCore's side, Vivian officially resigned as chairwoman. The new CEO was a hired professional manager. The first thing he did was publicly apologize and correct all patent-related materials. After months of violent turmoil, CloudCore's stock slowly began to stabilize and recover. But it would never return to its former peak. Ryan Shaw's name disappeared from the industry from then on. No one knew where he went. No one cared. At the year-end industry conference, I was invited as the closing keynote speaker. The lights on stage fell across me. The suit had been changed for one that fit better. I had gained a few pounds compared to half a year ago. I stood on stage and looked at the hundreds of faces below. Some familiar. Some unfamiliar. Former opponents. Current partners. I spoke into the microphone and said my final line. Technology is something you cannot fake. If you wrote it, you wrote it. If you didn't, you didn't. Time will bring every truth to the surface. Thunderous applause filled the hall. After the conference ended, I walked out of the venue. Outside, light snow had begun to fall. The first snow of the year. Fine flakes landed on my shoulders and melted instantly. I stood on the steps at the entrance and exhaled a white breath. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Vivian. "The baby is 1 month old. Sending you a photo. When are you free to come see him?" I opened the photo. In it, a tiny baby was wrapped in a pale blue blanket. Eyes closed. Sleeping soundly. His little fists were tightly clenched. His cheeks were round, carrying the soft pink of a newborn. I stared at the photo for a while. Then I made a call. "Hello, Ethan." Hearing her voice after so long, it sounded softer, with less of the sharpness from before. I saw the photo. I said, "This weekend. I'll come see him." "Okay." Her voice carried a slight tremor. "I'll wait for you." After hanging up, I stood on the steps. Snow was still falling. In the distance, city lights were beginning to glow. Countless windows like stars scattered into the night. A cold wind blew over, carrying fine snow against my face. It felt cool. I walked down the steps and along the sidewalk already covered with a thin layer of snow. The snow under my feet made a soft crunching sound. The streetlight stretched my shadow long, casting it behind me across the snow. Behind me, the lights and noise of the venue grew farther and farther away, separated by wind and snow. Ahead of me was a straight road covered in fresh snow. I could not see its end. My steps were steady. Not fast. Not slow. All right. That's all for today's story. Please remember to subscribe and leave a comment.